Malicious, vicious, and apathetic comments are everywhere online after sserafim's documentary Make It Look Easy dropped. But were we expecting anything different from a community notorious for its constant harassment against idols and fans alike? The answer is no, not really. Sserafim has faced immense criticism of their encore stage vocals, copyright allegations with Easy Era, massive backlash from their Coachella performance, and then this documentary on them dropped, which was definitely not well received by the community, thus stoking the flames of hate once again. The hate against Sserafim is nothing new. If you have been active in any social media, be it Instagram, Twitter, let's not call it X, and even Reddit, you know that these girls do not in fact have it easy with the general audience. Despite debuting in the biggest company in the industry, and including two household names, one from Korea and one from Japan, that were part of one of the most popular groups in the beginning of fourth generation, it was never smooth sailing for them. But how is that, you ask me? Apart from situations behind the scenes, such as internal fights within Hype, which we don't have a complete picture on, but we're now getting to know bits and pieces of what happened, from their debut, they faced several scandals and hardships. In the very beginning, they confronted the immense garam scandal, which caused one of the members, garam, to withdraw from the group after accusations of bullying. During that time, most criticized her past attitudes and actions without the full context, and after 2 weeks, she was forced to quit. Many bullied and shamed her to the point that even her own classmates filled her school desk with mean comments. Apart from the obvious hypocrisy of countering a bullying accusation with even more bullying, it's also noteworthy that she was a minor at the time of the accusations, which puts the community actions further into question. And after that, you would think that the story ends there, but 2 years later, people still continuously mention her as if she would be a pivotal part of the group if she were still there, as a way to hate Sserafim. But let's be frank and honest here. We all know that if she was a part of the group right now, she will receive as much hate as the other members, or even more depending on what she did or in how she acted and how netizens perceived her. Nobody really thinks of putting themselves in her shoes. But why would they? They're K-pop stans. But after a year of intense work and preparation, she got basically 2 weeks of living her dream career in a very, very messy way, just for the community to tear her down, only to then turn around and have people saying that she's their favorite member and that things will be better with her. That's not only disrespectful to the current members, who the jabs are obviously intended for, but garam herself, who is most likely mentally scarred from the situation. On top of that, since their debut, Sserafim has been garnering criticism in the singing department after their first encore performance for Fearless. Every encore performance following that has stirred the community up, and not in a good way. A staple of the wider K-pop community recently, but it never came close to what Coachella would achieve. But despite this rocky start, because of the criticism and the loss of a member, Sserafim still managed to have a successful career, dropping well-liked songs such as Anti-Fragile, Eve Psyche and Bluebeard's Wife, and Perfect Night. But just like any other girl group, they flew a little bit too close to the sun, and by that I mean they became too successful and attracted hate and bullying by everyone on the internet. Yay! Cases vary between girl groups, but the hate is universal. In 2019, it was Blackpink. In 2021, it was aespa. In 2022, it was IVE. In 2023, it was probably Blackpink again. And now it's Sserafim. And a little tangent here, I do think it's somewhat misogynistic that the K-pop community is constantly on a hate train against girl groups, moving from one group to another to finding a fault in another, and another, and another, and another, and when will the cycle ever end? It won't, because Sserafim's hate train will only end when another girl group becomes the main general audience's target. With the exception of BTS, who just get hate for being really popular, K-pop boy groups don't get anywhere near the same amount of hate, despite being equally or more popular. Obviously not all of them, because boy groups are in a decline, but you know what I mean. The community clearly favors boy groups and puts up unrealistic standards for girl groups, which is extremely toxic and, as I said, misogynistic. Why is this so? And why do we keep enabling it? But going back to Sserafim's case, which is our topic today. Beforehand, people were always tuned into their songs, their music videos. They like their personalities. obviously their music. But after Perfect Night, which was a massive hit not only in the K-pop sphere but almost globally, they started to be seen as a threat by stands of other groups, and ultimately things got picked on, picked apart. Is this performance live? Is this not? Their singing is bad. This person sucks. She isn't that cute or funny. She isn't that great of the vocalist anyways. Ballerina, again. And this only got worse when it was announced that they would perform in Coachella and they didn't live up to the expectations. The background hate coming from their encores had already gotten very big in Unforgiven and Easy, but it ultimately exploded with their Coachella performance. If you aren't tuned into music, Coachella is one of the biggest and most prestigious music festivals there are, and going to Coachella is a mark. Everyone's eyes were on them, and their performance left a lot to be desired. In their first night, they absolutely screwed up their live singing performance. I mean, they had pretty bad vocals. And previously, hate based on their singing on their encores was mainly focused on Sakura. But this time around, all of the girls were struggling, except Sakura, funnily enough. She was actually praised for her improvement and confidence in Coachella, at least until she spoke up about the hate afterwards. Kazuha and Unshe, on the other hand, were, I think, one of the main targets of all the hate, as well as Yeonjun. And the problem was that while the audience said that the performance was great and probably the sound was a lot better, to the people at home who were all tuned in, watching it live, we could hear them so well, their voices so well while they were doing hard choreographies. And although their energy was high, they couldn't compensate it with their singing. Since that has been something that they had been critiqued a lot this time, since all of the members showed some kind of weakness. Even the main vocalists, Yeonjun and Chaewon, people were able to hate on the group as a whole. Yeonjun and Chaewon, who are the main vocalists, have the majority parts of the songs. Obviously, did not have enough stamina to keep up with the songs. They have really hard parts, and although I did say that bringing garam up is not the best way to go about things. When they lost garam, they did lose one of the vocal members. So having it all dumped into Yeonjun and Chaewon when they're not able to keep up due to stamina. Well, Chaewon only had like one mistake, so I'll have that. But Yeonjun, we could see that her stamina was wearing out and it was really dragging her down. Unshe and Kazuha, it was just brutal. And Sakura was just like really confident. The first nights, I loved their energy. I love what they brought. They were dancing really hard, but I feel like I would have rather have seen them singing really well than watching them dance. Because I know that they can dance, and we were all tuning in to see them singing live. Because when you're in the US, you sing live. And I think that the general audience as a whole, obviously not fans because fans tune into all kinds of shows and all kinds of performances, but the general audience as a whole hasn't really seen them singing live or singing so live like we did in Coachella. And this was their perfect chance to prove the audience wrong and to show that no, they can actually sing and they're very good singers, despite them already having proven that, especially Yeonjun and Chaewon. With the ongoing hate, it was their chance to prove themselves. But instead, they proved the audience was right to a certain degree, and that tarnished their reputation and just snowballed in the hate train that doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. After that, I do think that all of them could improve in a certain way. And most of all, I think that the company should have seen that they weren't going to be able to keep up and made some changes, not have them do the choreographies all the time and have them singing. Because yes, after all, they are singers. When we see them live, I want to see them singing and having fun more than dancing. So yeah, Coachella week 1 was kind of disastrous in K-pop fans' eyes, especially because K-pop as a whole is an industry that you cannot afford to make a single mistake, let alone so many in such a prestigious festival. And the hate hasn't stopped until now. It was so big that the hate train infected every corner of the K-pop community. The girls had to disable comments from their social media, and although some time has passed, the backlash has persisted, with the comment sections of their Instagram accounts still being disabled months later. On top of all of this, the documentary on them titled Make It Look Easy was released, which covers their journey from Unforgiven era up to Easy. It is also important to mention that this is their second documentary, and from what I understood, they'll keep doing those documentaries, which are divided into a series of episodes, to show in the middle of every trilogy. The first one that they had was before Anti-Fragile, and it showed a little bit of how they came to debut, some hardships that they had before preparing for Anti-Fragile, how the choreography was really hard. And then in this one, it's in between Unforgiven and Easy Era, which is released right now before their crazy comeback. So I think we'll be seeing another documentary in another 2 years, maybe, when they finish this trilogy, release another comeback, and then we're gonna have a really shocking documentary, probably. This, if they do not do an even longer one as they become more experienced and veterans in the industry. So I don't really understand people hating on them for doing the documentary when they literally have The World Is My Oyster out there. But I guess some people don't know about that, and the timing is a little unfortunate. In the documentary, it shows the girls working while sick, having panic attacks, looking through Twitter, talking about what people were saying about them, even before the hate exploded, which shows the consequences of the stand's actions in real time. Personally, the documentary does come off as an opportunistic cash grab from Hype, because everything we consume from any group in K-pop or even out of it is a product. And I would be more content about it if I knew that the girls were paid super well for it, but exposing their vulnerabilities, knowing that most of the money is going to Hype, kind of pisses me off. But it is good that we get to see things that we usually wouldn't see. I think that transparency is important for the audience so that we can actually understand a different side. It also helps to humanize them, which is great in a community that's time and time again treat these girls as if their entire existence was made for the audience's entertainment, thus invalidating any hardships, feelings, work, and effort they put in. It also makes the public see the consequences of their actions. Online, it is easy to feel that anonymous hate comments don't have any impact on the people that are being hated on, but that isn't true, as the documentary has shown. On the other hand, the documentary feels a bit exploitative, as I said. Imagine having a little breakdown and a camera gets shoved into your face. Regardless, the documentary tackled topics that were getting a lot of hate for the girls, which, while very transparent, has led to even more hate. The public did not react well to their vulnerabilities being showed in the documentary, and went as far as say absolutely mean, heart-wrenching comments about them acting that they were sick. They feel like since what was shown in the documentary was targeted directly at the haters, what was shown in that was just not the truth. On the other hand, it does garner sympathy from fans, which make them more defensive towards the group. So that may help the hate die down, or it will just make the whole situation a lot more toxic. But let's tackle what was said about each one of the members and what was the hardships shown and my thoughts about it. Starting off with Kazuha, our dancer. Her hate was obviously mainly due to her lackluster Coachella performance, where her vocals were disappointing. But this wasn't really addressed in the documentary, since the timeline of this is between Unforgiven and Easy, with some flashbacks to when they were trainees. In this documentary, they focused on her background as a professional ballet dancer and her hardships within learning a completely different dance style and performing it, and how the choreographies always had a nod to that, which was getting kind of stale and attracting a bit of criticism because people are just like that. But then it showed how ballet was always a really big part of her life. It was kind of sad to see that she was having to let it go in a certain way due to people getting bored of it, and even her getting to agree with them, saying, yeah, I'm always showing this and it might get repetitive and people won't like it. People are already not liking it. I do think in the Easy choreography, we don't have any ballet incorporation in it. So this definitely addressed the hate that people were giving her for just being a ballerina and wanted to show off. Hyunjin is still one of the most hated girls in the Seraphim, despite being labeled low-key an it girl beforehand. Obviously, there are some problems with Starbucks, but a lot of her hate comments came from how she wanted to change the idol industry. She said that during her debut. People have a big problem with that because many feel like she hasn't done anything to change the industry and she feels complacent with it. In the documentary, it did show how people were expecting her to change something, but she wasn't sure how to even go about it. It did show how she was trying to make a difference, in particular with how she wrote I Different Than Doll. which talks about her honest opinions of being an idol and the expectations of being perfect that comes along with it. It also showed that she wants to continue trying to break stereotypes through her music. It might be an unpopular, but I do think that as a group, they are changing the K-pop industry ever so slightly with the transparency, showing medical issues, showing themselves without makeup, giving us an insight to what happens behind the stage. Eunchae has been interacting with so many different groups in her program. Sakura has played LOL. She has done so many different things. She says what she wants and responds to hate, which is not something that we see often. K-pop idols standing up for themselves. Yeonjun writing Idol, obviously, and Chaewon with her memes. Sure, it's obviously nothing groundbreaking. They're still part of a business that has many issues like misogyny, overworking of idols. This is to say the least. Obviously, we're not gonna get super deep into any dark themes, but if you're interested in that, just comment down below and I might be doing a video on that then. But anyways, there are probably other groups that you could say are doing more to change the industry or are more impactful or have done something similar. They're obviously not the first one to do a documentary, but that doesn't diminish what they have done, nor what they can still do, nor what they will do. Then we have the one and only Chaewon. She is the least hated member of Le Sserafim, as she has one of the best stage presences. She's a strong vocalist and is uniquely popular with boy stands. That doesn't mean she has it easy though. She also received hate for Coachella, but what was tackled in the documentary was her working despite feeling sick. Eunchae also wanted to work despite her feeling sick, and even though the staff said that they could stop if they wanted, they still went through and danced and sang and completed their task. And it goes to show that even without the direct pressure from the company, they still kept working despite being sick due to the general pressure from the industry, their pride, their sense of responsibility, not wanting to waste resources or anyone's time. And it shows that they can inadvertently harm themselves. And they do take their job very, very seriously, as they kept forcing themselves to work and get better results even though they were exhausting themselves in the process, clearly coming at the cost of their health and their well-being, and still didn't want to be stopped. Then we have Eunchae, who is the youngest member of the group. She is one of the most beloved Magnus out there, or at least she was, because after the ongoing hate train and the current Adore versus Hype battle, which we will be covering soon, that became New Jeans versus Le Sserafim in the eyes of the public, and obviously the Coachella performance. Even she was inspired from the hate, even though she's only 17. The documentary focused on how she is very in touch with comments online, a little too much in touch. She regularly checks X or Twitter, which, as everyone who's ever been on knows, isn't good for your mental well-being. This and the fact that she's very young makes her acutely vulnerable to online hate. Another thing shown was her having shortness of breath and hyperventilating during their practice, but performing perfectly moments later. I thought it was really curious to see how the members reacted to that and how they need to choose between being there as their friend or being there as their coworkers. But throughout the whole entire documentary, the girls seemed to support each other so well, and just the whole interaction between the members, the staff, and Eunchae was just surprisingly heartwarming despite the tense situation. And as a whole in the documentary, just the amount of support that the girls get from their staff, specifically their dance director, was really nice to see. And just seeing them talking on their hotel, how they have the best staff and how they love them and how they love each other and how they're supporting each other was really, really heartwarming and just something that I really like to see. So the documentary wasn't all showing just the bads and the negatives. It also showed us some nice things. One of them was how Eunchae became the MC of Music Bank. It showed how she had to work for that and pass through an interview and so on. And honestly, I thought that it was just being hype and being influential enough to put her there. But she actually went through a fairly strict application process and got her position through her own efforts and talents. And it shows that she's really, really a great MC. She's so charismatic and great. Obviously, being part of Hype has its perks, and it definitely helped her to get the interview and whatnot. But she got the position through her merit, which makes me admire her just that little bit more. It also showed Anche talking about her concerns about losing herself or sense of self while trying to fit the public's expectations, which is really troubling given her age. And she mentioned a couple of times how she is well liked now. People like her smile now. They think she acts cute. But will they still think of her like that when she gets older? When she stopped being cute, will people still like her? Which just shows how attuned she is with people's expectations and people's comments and their perception of her. And that is so stressful. Imagine having to live up to all of these expectations in a very stressful environment, constantly working, no vacation, and getting so much hate when you're only 17. Last but not least, we have the woman, the myth, the legend, Sakura. She's definitely the most hated Le sserafim member due to her struggles and anxiety around singing, and the documentary focused on that, similar to their first one. This time, it showed her breaking down with the vocal coach due to being scared of singing, likely because of the constant hate she receives and the frustration of not being able to meaningfully improve immediately because she has years and years of singing without the correct placement. She obviously has been an idol for a long time, but she definitely didn't have vocal coaching during all of these 10 years. I mean, even in Nice One, I think it's a little debatable if they had vocal coaches or not because the way the girls had to sing so high pitched and how Won Young improved so much and showed a completely new voice tone in IVE makes me think that maybe not. Question mark. But the documentary mainly shows her struggling with anxiety and panic attacks and her problems with feeling inadequate and not good enough and just having a really low self-esteem. This is probably an unfortunate consequence of the pressure from the industry and the audience, and I really hope that she can find herself and her confidence again. But on a lighter note, I thought it was hilarious when she asked, "Are we known in Japan?" Girl, you are literally Miyawaki Sakura. How would you not be known in Japan? But anyways, all in all, the documentary showed us that idols are constantly pushed to their limits with intense schedules and are often molded into these perfect images for the public, leading to loss of identity and severe stress. In particular, in this more recent generations, fourth and fifth, because there has been a notable increase in public scrutiny. To prove this point, a lot of people were obviously hating on the girls, saying that they just needed to sing better and do more training. And I think this attitude, first, is obviously very disrespectful because clearly the girls are going through a lot of stress and some of them are pretty young. All in all, I feel like as a community, K-pop stans just needs to understand the difference between criticism and bullying or harassment. Saying you don't like a group or an artist or that someone sings badly or that that was not their best performance is fine as long as you're not an a-hole about it. Constant mocking, harsh criticism on a completely unrelated post just because it includes the group that you so much hate, telling them that they don't deserve their spots, spamming and flooding comment sections, etc. That's just bullying. If you hate them, mute their group name and move on. Please spare us from having a bad fandom image, from having a bad fandom experience because you're just unhappy. Thank you. But unfortunately, the K-pop community is littered with toxic stans, which do these things. They are mean, and they drag the reputation of the entire community through the mud. We're there with dream stans. And you know how bad dream stans are? We're there with them. That's disgusting. Embarrassing. The barrage of hate some idols get is honestly disturbing, and as mentioned previously, they bring about actual consequences for the targets of the hate. In some more extreme cases, there were even tragic conclusions. And obviously, there are toxic fandoms everywhere. As I said, dream stands. It isn't just a K-pop problem. However, our community is rather notorious for its toxicity. People saying the documentary was released only to garner sympathy, that every idol struggles, but they don't cry about it, furthers that point. And is what kind of leads idols to tragic endings because look how trashy you're treating them. And I absolutely hate the sentence, everyone struggles, but they don't show it, because that shouldn't be held against those that are able to show their weakness, that they're able to talk about it, that they're able to make the audience see what they're going through, or those that are brave enough to even step back and treat what is making them feel so bad. And how many documentaries are there in the West focusing on artists' journeys and struggles? How many artists have spoken up about depression, anxiety, health complications, and other personal issues? And although no community is perfect in this sense, these are rarely a point of criticism for the respective artists. But as demonstrated by the backlash against this documentary, the K-pop community simply isn't a safe place for idols to openly talk about their struggles. And although mental health is not really openly talked about, there are so many stigmas surrounding it, especially depending on the culture, country, and people. As a whole, the K-pop community is always talking about the importance of idols' mental health. Up until idols actually open up and talk about their mental struggle, and that people contributed to that harm. Reactions to this documentary just showed that too many stans don't consider idols to be human. They really just want pretty and funny personalities that dedicate their entire lives for their entertainment and are perfect and act like robots and do not have feelings, do not interact with people of the opposite sex, which is exactly what Yunjin talks about in the lyrics of I Different Than Doll. To fear not, sserafim stans and fans, the best you can do for your group is just to drown out the hate without engaging with it through positive comments, posts, and etc. Don't be like me and get angry at them. No, ignore and move on. Out of all of this, I do wish that some of the criticism will help Le Sserafim grow as performers and especially as singers, because we do know that they need to improve. But everyone has room for improvement, and I'll gladly be seeing their journey into perfecting their skills. But more than anything, I hope that they have a good support system. They are able to go to therapy and prioritize their mental and physical well being. From this documentary, we saw how much hatred they took to heart. And this was even before things got out of hand. So I truly hope that they're healthy, well, and most of all, happy. And to all of you out there listening, watching, I hope you too are happy. Piano Cornix out.